Okay, folks, I'm here with Professor Gaetano Cipolla, and he is a retired professor of Italian from St. John's University. And if you're a Sicilian American and you're interested in all things Sicilian, history, culture, poetry, you have to visit his organization and the website that he has. And I'm going to try to pronounce it correctly. I don't think I will. Arba Sicula. Is that right, Professor?
Yes, Arba Sicula.
Arba Sicula. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Arba means dawn, and Sicula means Sicilian. So it's Sicilian dawn in English. Arba Sicula. And we have a site, it's called Arba Sicula, one word, .org.
Well, I'll make sure that there's links to that also in the description. But how long have you had? This is an organization, correct? And
Yes.
that you start. When did you start this organization?
Well, I didn't actually start it.
Okay.
I was involved with them at the beginning. However, I began to actually run the organization in 1987
Oh,
and
okay.
88. I became actually the editor of the journal, which is called Arba Sicula, and which is a unique journal, actually a little book. Which is unique because it is actually in Sicilian and English. Every page has an opposite page translated into English. So everything is bilingual. And it's probably one of the very few journals that do that in the
Yeah,
world.
I get people ask me all the time about the Sicilian Americans about where they can go to find information about their heritage and about their origins. And I always lead them to your website because there's so much material there. You put a lot of work into it, and I really think that it's almost like a one-stop shop, if you will, with just the Sicilian material.
Well, we have, as I said, we usually update it occasionally, not all the time, but we have a full version of the Arba Sicula Journal. We also have a second publication. It's called Sicilia Parla, which means Sicily speaks, and which is only English, and it's about 20. It's a 20-page publication, mostly in English, with one page devoted to Sicilian poetry translated into English. We also have a catalog of the books produced by Legas, which is also my company. We have produced about 150 titles,
Oh my
and
God.
you can buy them. You can buy them, but mostly, and in addition to that, we have videos. We have actually, I even have
That's right. Yeah.
lessons in Sicilian. I promised myself that I would do one lesson every month, but I seldom get to do that. But there are three interactive lessons that you can actually take, beginning lessons of Sicilian that you can see on the site.
Now you came from Sicily. Where in Sicily did you come from?
My hometown is called Francavilla di Sicilia, which is near Taormina.
Okay. All right.
It's about 18 kilometers inland from Taormina
A
on the
small
east
village, I'm
coast.
assuming, or something like that, or
No, it's say 25 years ago or 30 years ago, it had about 7,000 people living there.
okay.
So it's not that small. And it's
Yeah.
a very ancient town.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
in fact, they've discovered some archaeological site in Francavilla that go back literally to when the Greeks arrived in Sicily. The Greeks arrived in Sicily in 735 BC,
Yeah.
and they landed in a place called Giardini Naxos, which is below Taormina. And people from that first colony eventually moved up a little bit inland into Francavilla. And so we have remains of, say, 3,000, what, 500 years before Christ. No, the first colony was 735 BC. So you figure out it's 2,700 years ago.
Wow,
So
amazing.
it's an old town.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you go back there often for tours and things, right?
We actually do a tour every year, or we have done a tour every year for the last 28 years, except for the 2 years for the pandemic. We didn't do that. We couldn't do it, but we have resumed actually going to going to Sicily for 12 or 13 days. And it's basically the best tour in town, if I can be immodest in saying that. It is the best tour in town because it is a voyage, a journey of discovery. It's done primarily for the members of Arba Sicula, which are, we have like 25, we had 2,500 members throughout the United States and in the world. We have at least one member in every state of the union,
Mm.
and we don't publicize the tours. The tours are always filled with people from Arba Sicula, people who become members of Arba Sicula just to go on the tour, because people in Sicily know the work that I've done, and so we get special treatment everywhere we go. We get to meet the mayor of Palermo,
Oh, wow.
the president of the region of Sicily
Oh, my
has
goodness.
invited it many times. So, and in every town, in every major town, we have contacts that we have established throughout the years. So it's basically a tour that cannot be equaled or cannot be even copied by commercial tours. And it's also the best buy in town. It's
Do you
cheap.
cover the whole island? Now, does your tours cover the
Yes.
entire island or?
Oh, yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
We do. We
Interesting.
start in Palermo. We
Mm.
start in Palermo. We have 3 days 3 nights in Palermo, and then we go to Cefalù for one day. We go to Bagheria to another day, and we visit Palermo, the city of Palermo. Then we go to Marsala, where we spend one night, and again we have a taste of wine in Marsala. From Marsala, we go to Agrigento for one night, sometimes 2 nights. From Agrigento, we go to Piazza Armerina, which is, I don't know if you've been to Sicily?
No, I have not. I've not
No,
been to
you're not.
Sicily. Yeah.
Um,
I need to go in. I need to go on one of your tours.
yeah, you should. You should. In fact, we are going on the 10th of June. We are doing the next tour, which will be our 29th tour. 29th tour.
Wow.
So
Well,
we
in
did
June, isn't it very
28.
hot there in June? I would think it'd be very, very hot in June, isn't it? Or
Sorry.
is it very hot in June, summertime in Sicily? How?
It depends.
Yeah.
Nowadays, with the climate change, it is very difficult. Normally, at the beginning of June, it's between 75 and 80, and cooler in the evening. But it gets pretty hot in July and August. But it's wonderful
Yeah, I'm
because
sure. Yeah. Every time I
so
talk to anybody who's from the Sicilian Americans, it just seems like they have so much pride in their homeland. Anytime I talk to them,
yes.
they're just exuberant with pride about where they come from. And I think of all the people, they seem to be the most curious about their origins, and that I think is very
Well, it's important because Sicilians always have had this idea that they are a special people. They have their own history. They have a 3,000-year history. They've been independent many, many, many centuries. From the 13th century to the 15th century, they were basically one nation. And they always have the feeling of islanders. Even Irishmen have the same kind of feeling. The attachment to the island is very, very, very strong. And every time I meet a Sicilian, you just mentioned it, every time I meet a Sicilian, the first thing they tell me is, I'm proud of being Sicilian.
that's great.
I never asked them. I never asked them. And I always wondered, why do they do that? Why do they? I've never met a man from Bologna or Milano come up to me and say, I am Milanese and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
They don't think of it. Why do Sicilians do it?
Mm.
I know the reason
Yeah.
because I know the reason they do it is because they're telling you by saying that they're proud of Sicilian that all things that are being said about Sicilians are wrong. There's a the stereotype of the mafia, delinquents, violence that is associated with Sicily is not true. Sicilians are hardworking people, religious, family oriented, and they have been maligned basically by the media.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Arba
It's interesting you
Sicula,
said that because I was before this interview, I was just looking at some things in Sicily, and I couldn't get over how diverse the economy is. Just how many different things there are. There's heavy industry, of course, tons of shops, and it's just a thriving area in many respects. You wouldn't think that, according to what the media would tell you, but it's a very diverse economy, and it seems like there's just that entrepreneurial spirit all over the island.
well, not only that, Sicily offers everything.
Yeah.
If you go to a different region of Italy, they may be famous for the Renaissance, for example. You go to Florence, obviously the place of the Renaissance. But if you go to Sicily, you have all ages from ancient Greek to modern. So we have all kinds of let's say archaeological sites that date back to the Greek time when Sicily was known as Magna Graecia, which means the greater part of Greece,
Mhm.
which together with the southern part of Italy had influence of the Greek influence. But Syracuse and Agrigento at one point were even more important than Athens during the 5th century and 4th century before Christ. So Sicily offers everything. You go to Sicily, you will find uh, a new Baroque architecture, which was started basically after the eastern coast of Sicily was almost destroyed by an earthquake in 1693, which forced everybody to actually rebuild the whole island, and they rebuilt it in the Baroque style, so that you
Mhm.
find the Sicilian style Baroque in Sicily that you find nowhere else. And we have all kinds of things. So Sicily, I like to say that Sicily is the best kept secret until now.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, yeah,
would you believe it that last year we had difficulty finding a hotel room in Palermo? No.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and it's getting better. So
yeah, yeah.
basically, tourism has become let's just say, the new card that Sicilians play for a better life.
I can't get over the number of people I know also who are Sicilian, who are born and raised in the United States, but they're going back to Sicily to have a second home there and to
Oh
live.
yes,
So it's quite amazing. Just I see that frequently actually.
you can actually buy a house for $1. I don't know if you know that.
I'm worried. It's tempting, but I'm worried about what you're going to get, for a
Well,
dollar.
no. Well, basically, all you have to do is you go to certain towns which have been depopulated. In other words, there's if they have no job, people leave the town. So the towns, many of the towns, especially the ones on top of the mountains,
Yeah,
have lost lots of half of their population. So the houses are empty, and in order to actually increase the population and also to bring people and new forces and new energy, they are offering many towns are offering actually a house for $1. All you have to do is promise to stay there 5 years in 5 years and renew the house.
how about that? That's amazing. Yeah.
So you make an investment of, say, to fix the house, maybe 15, $20,000, and you have a beautiful home.
That's
Uh,
amazing. And is there plumbing there and everything else that you need to live? Or
yes, sure,
yeah,
sure.
that's great.
Sicily is has the last 30 years, Sicily has literally grown in many different areas and grown in in what they offer people. In other words, there's every this past year, um, one of the persons who came on the tour was 90 years old. 90 years old, and she was Sicilian, and she had been to Sicily maybe 30 years ago. And when we went from one hotel to the other, she kept looking around as though she were in a different world. And she could marvel at the whole idea of the luxury. There were four-star hotels, but I mean, they were luxurious. They were regular four-star hotels, but she was wondering because she remembered how things were 40 years ago or 50 years ago. Things have changed
Yes,
for
indeed.
the better, I must
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, really. I see. Yeah. Well, a big change I think in the latest in the news is that they're gonna the bridge that's going to connect the mainland to Sicily seems like looks like it's going to be underway, and it looks like it's going to be.
Well, they keep saying that.
They keep saying
They've
that,
been
right?
saying that for 2,000 years. Even the Romans tried to build a bridge over Messina, and they never managed. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Um, I've studied the whole idea. The cost is incredible, and to cross from Sicily to Calabria, it would cost $40 just for the fee to cross the bridge. So
Oh my
it's
goodness.
it's not economically feasible at this point, but they keep saying it.
They keep
So
saying it, indeed. Yeah, they
they keep
keep on
saying
saying
it,
it. Right, right.
and maybe it's possible.
Well, how
Uh,
many books now? Your specialization really has been translation, and people don't. Some people might not know this, but Sicilian, the dialect is a distinct language from what we know of Italian today. Correct? Or
yes,
mhm.
yes. Most people in this country believe that Sicilian is what they call a dialect which means which has a connotation of being an inferior form of communication, which is absolutely wrong. Sicilian was the first language used for poetry in Italy. For the first 150 years of Italian literature, every poem that was written, every poem, most poetry that was written in Sicilian. So Sicilian precedes uh, Tuscan or Florentine.
Really? So prior to Dante, I guess it was the Sicilian language.
Dante
Okay.
himself said, for the first 150 years of Italian poetry, or whatever poetry was written in Sicilian,
How about that?
which means that what we know is called La Scuola Siciliana, Sicilian school, which was founded by the Emperor Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire, who was also King of Sicily, was founded primarily to offer an alternative to, let's say, Catholic or Christian learning. In other words, it was to counterbalance lay culture with the Christian culture of the papacy. So he wanted to offer a lay version of things. In fact, he founded the University of Naples in 1224 to create bureaucrats for his empire. So he wanted to create a lay culture to counteract the Latin culture that was other thing. And the poets who were at his court were from all parts of Italy, so that they all wrote in Sicilian used at the court. So Sicilian was used, I'm sorry, Sicilian was used by people who were not Sicilian and to use for poetry. So basically, after Frederick II died in 1250, uh, his empire sort of collapsed in a sense. And basically, all the poetry that was written in the Sicilian language was lost. It was lost, and it was basically what remains were some codex, some codices translated into Florentine or Sienese or other languages to maintain it. So basically, we do not have, except for a couple of poems, what the original Sicilian was like. in the 1250, in that age.
Hmm.
What we have are manuscripts copied by the amanuenses, the people who used to copy these books. And of course, while doing the copying, they changed everything. They changed the endings, they changed the intonation, they changed words, so that basically we do not know what Sicilian was like in 1230, say in the year 1230. I have been trying to do some poetry that has been transcribed into Florentine or Tuscan, to try to get back the flavor and the sounds of Sicilian. And I've done a couple of translations of poems by Giacomo da Lentini. Giacomo da Lentini was the leader of the school, of the Sicilian school, and he's the guy who invented the sonnet.
Huh?
I've done, yes, the sonnet was invented by Sicily, by the way.
That's the sonnet was invented in Sicily.
By
How about
Giacomo da
that?
Lentini.
Amazing.
So, what can I tell you? So,
Yeah, these are things you don't learn, and these are things you don't learn in school. You know, when you study English literature or whatever, they never mention anything like this. So that's
oh no, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no. You think about the sonnet, you think of Shakespearean
exactly,
sonnet,
right, yeah,
and Petrarchan sonnet. Petrarch was actually the greatest writer of Italy that was copied everywhere,
yeah.
and they were copied everywhere. And in fact, we have the word from his name is Petrarchismo. Petrarchismo, which means the following Petrarch. But the sonnet was invented by Giacomo da Lentini in Sicily,
How
which
about
is
that?
basically the normal, let's say, poem in Sicily is made of 8 lines of poetry, 8 lines of poetry. So basically, what he did is he added 6 more lines to that and made a sonnet. So the sonnet is 14 lines of poetry.
That's amazing.
So what can I tell you? It's a
Yeah.
vast world.
Well, how many books have you written yourself? I mean, how many books have you translated, and how many books have you written? And just give us an idea about that.
Well, basically, when I started my academic career, I was interested basically in studying Italian poetry because I taught Italian at school. Basically,
Right.
all my academic year, I've taught for 31 years. I taught Italian for 31 years at St. John's University, and before that, I taught at NYU, at Montclair State, and different places. But basically, uh, I forgot what did you
How
ask
many?
me?
I just out of curiosity, you got
All
so
the
many books
books.
listed there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, as I said, I started doing that. So my first book was called, my first dissertation for the PhD was called um, "The Archetype of the Labyrinth and Its Manifestations in Petrarch." But I moved away from that when I began to actually study Sicilian culture and Sicilian language. Because when I came to this country, I was 18. I went to school, I went to NYU. I got 3 degrees basically. I got a BS from NYU, then a master's from Hunter College, and back to NYU for the PhD.
Mm.
And then I've taught there as well.
Mm.
But I've done so. The first book I wrote was called The Labyrinth Studies.
Mm-hmm.
I was interested in the labyrinth, but from that point of view, so I moved away from that because when I left Sicily, I really didn't know much about Sicilian language and culture other than the fact that I was a speaker of the language. I was fluent
Interesting. Yeah.
in Sicilian, but I did not look at it as a subject to teach or to learn.
Mm.
When I came to this country, at one point, I was actually invited by one of the professors at NYU to recite a few poems in Sicilian. And I chose 2 poems by Giovanni Meli. Giovanni Meli is probably the greatest Sicilian poet of all time who wrote in Sicilian, not Italian. only in Sicilian. And I read one of his poems. It's called L'occhi, the eyes, which was translated by Wolfgang Goethe into German, without even knowing who Giovanni Meli was. He's
Mm.
done. In any case, when I read the first, when I read that poem, something happened. I'll read you the first four lines of the thing. Ucchiuzzi niuri, sittagliati, faciti cadere, casi eccitati. Now, it's talking about to a love his lover, and said, I'll translate it. It's called it's black. There's no way to translate actually the word ucchiuzzi, which means eyes, but it doesn't mean small eyes. It means sweet eyes, loving eyes. So basically, I translated it with black, loving eyes. If you look coy, houses and cities you will destroy.
Mm.
So those are the first few lines. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the word ucchiuzzi reached deep into my soul because it is the language of that you learn at your mother's lap. It is the language of the heart, basically. And poetry that is written in the language of the heart has a special power,
Yeah.
a special power that you can only get if you know the language and if you learn the language at the beginning of your life.
Mm. Yeah.
If I translated that same word and say occhiucci, it doesn't have an effect on me.
Huh.
Does not reach inside my stomach, have an immediate connection to it. I could tell you a whole story about
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could tell you a whole story about actually what the power of the Sicilian language for Sicilian is tremendous in the fact that you establish an immediate connection with people if you speak to them in Sicilian. Sicilians don't speak Sicilian to strangers.
Really? Now, why
Yes,
is that? Why is that?
because speaking Sicilian has come to mean that somehow you are illiterate.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Mm.
Yes. In other words, we Sicilians learn Italian at school.
Yes.
It's a foreign language to us because for 700 years, say at the beginning of, say, from the 12th century on until maybe 50 years ago, everybody in Sicily spoke Sicilian, not Italian. Italian is the language of culture, is a Florentine, is the language of books. And if I tell you that when Italy was made in 1861, barely 5% of the entire population of Italy understood Tuscan.
Mm.
And people who were illiterate obviously didn't have a chance to actually understand Tuscan or Florentine. It was basically used for writing, for deeds, for all kinds of public things. But Sicilians use Sicilians everywhere in their family, in their surrounding, and they learn Italian in school.
So they
So it's
speak
a foreign
Italian in
language.
school, but they won't speak at home. They're not going to speak Italian. They're going to speak Sicilian, correct?
Well, nowadays things have changed.
I
Basically,
see. Right.
now things have changed because of television, because of the radio, because of
Yes.
films, which normally are in Italian. So most people now understand more or less, understand and speak a form of Italian, even
Mm.
though with some Sicilian accent.
Mm.
But 50 years ago, everybody in Sicily understood and spoke Sicilian.
How about that? Interesting. Yeah. Mm.
So we have a problem. And the problem is actually how to save Sicilian.
Yes.
Sicilian is in danger of becoming extinct.
Really?
Although I
Wow.
don't believe that. I don't
Mm.
believe that. I think
Hmm.
Sicilian will evolve and will survive.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can tell you one of my friends actually said that Sicilians are more jealous of their language than they are of their women. which tells you a lot. So I have hopes that the Sicilian language will survive, and that is basically what Arba Sicula was founded for.
Mm,
Arba Sicula, the guiding light for Arba Sicula is to study, preserve, and promote the Sicilian language and the culture that is associated with it, because 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 Sicilian, if I don't know. I think I sent you a copy of my latest translation of.
yeah, I was gonna bring that up. In fact, I'll show everybody the picture of it. It's right here.
Oh yes,
Yes,
poetry of Ignazio Buttita.
yeah, and
Ignazio,
this is the latest book you've done, right? This is the most recent.
yes,
Right.
yeah, that book was. I just did that. I just did that, and the reason that I've been trying to do it is because Ignazio Buttita, the one of the poems that has become like an icon or kind of a national anthem for Arba Sicula is a poem called Lingua e Dialetto, which is language and dialect, which is basically uh, a defense of the Sicilian language, that
Right.
it be
Yes.
a defense of the Sicilian language, because um, he basically says that you can take everything away from a person. You can
Right.
take his passport, you can take his job, you can take the bed where he sleeps, the table where he eats. He's still free and he's still rich. The time that they become poor and enslaved is when they are robbed of the language that was inherited from them. Because culture and language are the two things that cannot be separated. If one of them dies, the other one will die. So the culture of Sicily will die if the Sicilian language also dies.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
basically his main. Do you think your audience would like to hear a reading of that
Yeah.
book,
Please go
of
ahead.
that poem?
Absolutely. Sure. You bet.
You do? Okay, I will do it. I will do it in Sicilian first, and then I'll do it in English. Would that
Okay.
be okay?
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So it's called Lingua e Dialetto, language and dialect. I'll do the Sicilian first.
All right.
You understand any Sicilian at all?
No, I'm
No.
terrible. My wife is so much better. My wife does. She's not from Italy originally, but she's so much better at language than I am. And she's actually Arab, but she can pick up
Oh
some things.
well.
Yeah, yeah, she can pick up some things. In Sicilian or
Well, there's a lot of Arabic in Sicilian
yes,
because
yes,
the Arabs were there for over 250 years, you know.
yeah, yeah. She gets along with Sicilians more than I think more than any of the other times. They're very much. She says they remind her
They
of her
love
people too.
Sicily. They
Yeah,
love the
yeah.
Arabs. Love Sicily. They have great poetry written in Arabic that I've translated some of it myself.
How about that?
Uh, uh, but they were very attached to Sicily. It was almost like their paradise.
How about that? Now, let me just real quick. I mean, you could speak Sicilian and Italian. Any other languages that you could speak?
That I speak?
Yeah, well, that I mean, besides the Italian languages,
Yes. uh,
English, of course.
I speak French. I speak French. I speak Spanish. I speak Sicilian, English, Italian, and Sicilian.
How
So
about that? Oh, interesting. Yeah,
not fluent in all of them, but I can
right.
understand most all of them. Mostly English is Sicilian. Italian is my first language. Sicilian, English, Spanish, and French. Portuguese a little bit,
How about that?
and Latin. I forgot. Latin.
I was gonna maybe think Greek might be something also you might know
Greek,
because
I don't. No, Greek, I
yeah,
never studied it. I never
uh-huh.
studied Greek. There he goes. I'll read the poem.
Please.
I don't know if you have any thing about the timing.
Now we have plenty of time, so go right
I will
ahead.
have the time.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll read you the English, the Sicilian first, and then I'll read the English.
All right.
Un popolo, mettitelo a catena, spugliatelo, attuppatici a bucca, è ancora libero. Levatici un ciavaglio, un passaporto, A tavola un ne mangia, un letto un ne dorme e ancora ricco. Un popolo diventa povero e servo quando ci arrobbano a lingua, addutata di pace, è perso per sempre. Diventa povero e servo quando i paroli non figliano paroli e si mangiano giaditti. Me ne addugno ora mentre accordo a chitarra do dialetto che perde una corda lo giorno. Mentre a ripezzo a tila camuluta che tissero i nostri avi cullana di pecore siciliane. E sogno povero, hai i denari e non li posso spendere, i gioielli e non li posso regalare, u canto da gaggia con l'ali tagliati, un povero che adatta de minni scippi da marce putativa, che chiama figlio Pinciuria. Noace l'avevamo a marce, nella rubarono, aveva i minni a fontani di latte e ci vippero tutti. Ora ci sputano. Ne restò a voce di idda, a cadenza, a nota vascia, du suono e du lamento, che essi non ne possono rubare. Ne restò a somiglianza, la natura, i gesti, i lampi dall'occhio, che essi non ne possono rubare, non ne possono rubare, ma restiamo poveri e orfani lo stesso. A powerful defense of the Sicilian language. I'll read my English translation. A people put them in chains, take away their possessions, plug their mouths, they are still free. Take away their jobs, their passports, the table where they eat, the bed where they sleep, they are still rich. People become poor and enslaved when you rob them of the language inherited from the fathers. They are lost forever. They become poor and enslaved when words do not give birth to other words and devour one another. I realize this now as I tune the guitar of my dialect that loses a chord every day. While I mend the moth-eaten cloth that our ancestors wove with wool of Sicilian sheep. And I am poor. I have money, but I cannot spend it. I have jewels, and I can't give them away. A song inside a cage with clipped wings. A poor man who sucks the dry tits of a would-be mother who calls him son as an insult. We had a mother once. They robbed us of her. She had breasts like fountains of milk, and everyone drank from her. Now they spit at her. Her voice has remained in us, her cadence, the low note of the sound and the lament. These cannot be taken from us. Her resemblance remained, her way to walk, her gestures, the flashing eyes. These they cannot take away from us. They cannot take them away from us, but we remain poor and orphans just the same.
Wow, amazing. How long did it take you to translate that?
I used to teach a course of translation, so I'm pretty adept at doing these translations. It's not an easy job. It takes time, it takes patience. Sometimes a word escapes you, and sometimes I have to dream about it during the night to come up with the exact rendition of the word. But it's something that I do with a passion. As I said, I used to teach translation. It's not an easy thing. Most people think that a translator just transposes one word for the next. It is not true.
Yeah.
It is not true because you translate the intentions of the poet. You translate not just words. You translate the feeling, the emotions, and it is not an easy. Being a translator is sometimes not appreciated
Yeah.
for what they do. But translators recreate basically a new poem, a poem that stands on its own two legs in a different language.
About that. You really got to capture the spirit of the poem or the text, and that probably is where the big challenge comes in, just to capture what was the, like you said, the intention of the writer and stuff. Yeah,
Right, right,
yeah. Now that
right.
poem was written by Ignazio Butita. Is that's how to pronounce his name? That's right here. This book.
Ignazio Buttitta, yes,
Now,
he's a
now
man.
tell us a little bit about him. This is the newest book that you've written. And he was one of Italy's best poets at one point in time, wasn't he? I mean, in the 20s.
One of Sicily's best poets,
Yeah,
yes.
I see.
He's
Okay.
the most famous Sicilian poet. He used to travel from one town to the next to speak to crowds of people, mostly laborers, workers. And he was like a socialist who wanted to actually improve the lives of the Sicilian people. And he had, it was like a magnet when he spoke to the people. He inflamed himself and inflamed actually the people who were there to actually fight for a better life for them and
Yeah.
for a better life for Sicilian. So basically, the poem I just read to you was published in the first edition of Arba Sicula in 1979.
Wow.
So from that point on, I met Ignazio one time. I went to actually meet him in Bagheria. He's from Bagheria, near Palermo, and he had a shop, a delicatessen shop, and he was waiting outside the door of his shop. And I brought him a copy of another poet, which actually was number one of the series of books that I founded called Poets of Arba Sicula. The Poets of Arba Sicula, the first volume of that series is called Maledetto la lingua, Damned Language, by Vincenzo Ancona, a man who came to America, a poor man, a laborer, who was a great poet in Sicilian. He came to America. He never learned English. That's He never learned English that well. So the word maledetto la lingua is basically referring to the language that he couldn't speak well. He says, in my own language, I'm like a Cicero, but when I speak English, everything comes out like gibberish. So I gave Ignazio Butita a copy of Maledetto la lingua when I met him. I think it was 1995.
Mm,
He passed away, by the way, about 10 years in 99.
I
He
see.
was 96 years old, if I
Oh my
recall.
goodness. Well,
96 years old.
yeah.
He was a very famous person. In fact, when I went to Brussels this past December 7th, in Brussels, there was a big conference at the European Parliament uh, on Sicilian language and on the efforts of people to try to save the language. It was organized by a Euro deputy from Sicily by name Ignazio. His name was also Ignazio Corrao, and they actually brought 150 people from Sicily to be part of the conference, and I was one of 5 speakers
Yeah.
who spoke at the European Parliament about the Sicilian language and the efforts made by Arba Sicula and myself and all the others to actually save the language from extinction.
Mm.
And the nephew, of Ignazio Butita, whose name is also Ignazio, who teaches at the University of Palermo, was among the audience in Brussels. So it was a great 2-day conference
That's great.
on Sicilian.
Good. Great.
There's actually on my website, on Facebook, I think, there's a link to the actual recording of the.
Yeah, I'll put a link in that. You sent that to me also. I'll put a link in the description of this video so people can see what you.
That will be. I was the only one who spoke in English, by the way.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask if it was in
Everybody
English. That's
was
good.
in Italian, so
Right.
I'm the only one who I chose to speak English, even though the audience, everybody was Sicilian practically.
Yeah.
Everybody. I should have spoken either in Sicilian or Italian, but I spoke in English because I wanted to reach other than Sicilians. I wanted the world to know, basically. And being at the European Parliament, I wanted to reach others who were not Italian or Sicilian. But
Well, you speak English very well. You write English very well. But did you know English before you came to the United States from Sicily?
I knew two words: water and how do you do. And I keep telling the story. I remember that we had family here, my cousins. I had cousins who were, one was about 6 years old, the other was 8 years old, and all I knew is water and how do you do. So basically, when I met these two young boys, I said, "How do you do?" They looked at me as though I were a Martian.
Well, you've learned it very well. You know, I think you could also tell it. You're a guy. You have an interesting perspective in that you've been involved with Sicily for so long. And what's your viewpoint of it all? How much Sicily has changed for the good or for the worse in your view over the years?
Oh, Sicily has grown, as I told you before, has grown, has become better. Even though they could also be even better, because primarily, I don't know if you know this, but Sicily is one of 5 regions of Italy
Yes.
that has a special statute of independence. In other words, they have their own parliament. They have their own parliament that can legislate and do laws on all kinds of things. However, they do not adhere to those to the statutes. In other words, the people, nothing happens in Sicily unless it comes down from Rome. In other words, Sicily was given the statute, the special statute of semi-independence. This parliament, by the way, Sicily has the longest, the first parliament in Europe, even
Really?
before the British.
Huh.
If you go to Sicily and you go to the Parliament House, to the seat of the Sicilian government, you see 2 dates: 1131 and 1947 on top of the president's chair. 1131, 1947. 1131 was the first Congress, the first meeting of the Sicilian Parliament. 1131.
Mm.
And 1947 was the time when the statute was given to Sicily as the first region of Italy to become semi-independent, to have its own parliament. There are 4 others, but they came afterwards. And the reason they did that is because Sicily was trying to become independent from Italy, was trying to secede from Italy. And to avoid that, the Italian government, which was, by the way, the parliament, the constitution of the Italian parliament, of the Italian nation, was signed in 1948, after the Sicilian.
Oh,
After
interesting.
the Sicilian.
Yeah, interesting.
And they did that because Sicily wanted to become, basically, they wanted to become the 50th state of the United States.
I was going to say that they wanted to be they wanted to be one of the United States, didn't they?
They did. But of course, that would not have, that was opposed by the Russians, because it would have meant that the United States would have a base. They do have a base in there in Sicily,
Sure.
but they would
Mm.
own Sicily as part of the Mediterranean, and that would give them basically control of the Mediterranean Sea
That's
and
right.
all the lands around it.
Mm.
So that didn't happen. But anyway, Sicily was given this kind of special statute.
Yes.
Special statute. So Sicily has improved quite a lot in the last 40 years, in the last 50 years, quite a lot. There's still problem with unemployment. There's still all kinds of problems. People have to leave Sicily to go find a job someplace else in the north, and as they did. Would you believe that Sicily was always the land or the island was the place that was calling for people to come to live there? Sicily became a land of emigration,
Yes.
sending people out only after they became Italians. Sicily was always the place where people from the Mediterranean wanted to go. It was like the promised land of the Greeks, Phoenicians, the Arabs, even everybody has been there. Everybody has been there because it was attracted by the climate, the beauty of the place, the fertility of the land.
Yeah. Even today, I mean, you have all the migrants. Yeah.
It became the land of emigration after they became Italian in 1861.
How about that?
Between 1890 and 1925, a quarter of the Sicilian population was forced to emigrate. A quarter. 1,250,000 Sicilians moved away from Sicily. They went everywhere. They went to the north, to France, to Belgium, but mostly to the United States, to South America, and later to Australia. So Sicilians are everywhere.
Everywhere. Amazing. Yeah, amazing. What are you going to work on? What are you working on? What you have a new book that you're going to be working on, or what's?
I will be publishing a book shortly, which is called "The Struggle for Sicilian Independence."
The struggle for
The Struggle for Sicilian Independence.
Interesting.
By Giuseppe Chanot, which is basically a history of how Sicily became part of Italy, starting from Garibaldi's invasion of the island, the taking over of the southern part of Italy. You know, in 1860, the southern part of Italy, beginning from Naples down, including Sicily, were part of a different nation. What was it? It was called the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, which had a capital in Naples, but Sicily was part of it. So
was that part of Spain, or was that a Spanish?
A Spanish. Well, it was the Bourbon family was in charge. Bourbon family. So the Spanish people or the Spanish government from the whole story started after say the Sicilian Vespers of 1283, 1282, when they threw out the French out of Sicily, and then afterwards it started by electing a king from Aragon. From the Aragonese king became king of Sicily. Then the Spanish took over, and the Spanish have been connected with Sicily for the last 5 centuries.
Yeah.
For 5 centuries they were there. But when Garibaldi came into Sicily, the Sicilian were part of the Kingdom of the Two Sicily under the Bourbon family. All of southern Italy. So they conquered Sicily, they conquered the south, and they brought it together with Piedmont, the new king, Victor Emmanuel II, and that made Italy.
Yes, right.
But basically, Sicilians are, if you ask us as a Sicilian, even in the States today, they say, "What are you?" They will not say, "I'm Italian." They will say, "I'm Sicilian."
That's right. That's right.
Even today.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, that's you have a tremendous amount of knowledge, and I think anybody who really wants to have an understanding of Sicily, they should go on one of your tours, and also, visit your organization.
They should become members of Arba Sicula.
Yes.
All it costs is $30 a year.
Amazing.
For $30 a year, it's the best buy in town, because we actually we actually do programs at St. John's University. We do 3 or 4 programs a year, free to the public,
Free. Okay.
with food, with food. So I always say becoming members of Arba Sicula is basically the best buy in town, because you can come to all of these lectures, theatrical performances, recitals, etc., for $30 a year. But not only you can bring a whole family and
That's great.
whole guests. So that sometimes for $30 a year, you can have 10 people come to be entertained 4 times a year with food.
That's
So
wonderful.
what can you do better than
What
that?
can you, Sicilian food, you can't beat that either. Right. So that's great. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, we're gonna have to talk to you again in the future, and I wish you the best. And keep us apprised of the new book that you're going to be writing and other things that you're going to be doing. It's
Well,
very exciting.
when the book comes out, I'll send you a copy, perhaps.
That's wonderful. I look forward to reading it. Then that's great.
The book is written from the point of view of Sicilians. In other words, it's written. There's an official history which is accepted by everybody, but this is a history written from the perspective of the loser.
Yes. Well, yeah. Yes.
Because the winners always write their history according to how they like things. So this is a revolutionary book.
Yes, this is a very different, much different perspective, and maybe a more truthful perspective. Sometimes.
Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that a band of 1,000 people, not trained necessarily as soldiers, people from all walks of life, wearing red shirts, landed in Sicily with the help of the British, and they managed to not defeat, but to take over the island, which was defended by an army, a well-trained and well-equipped army of 25,000 people? Nobody knows that. I mean,
That's amazing. Well,
there was a lot of betrayals, a lot of underhanded work by big, let's say, big organizations like the British government, the secret services.
Yes, the British government's always involved one way or another. So
well, they were there. Their navy was
yes.
docked in Palermo, protecting basically, supposedly, the wine growers of Marsala, who were English. So they were protecting the English interests in Marsala, but they were there to stop the Sicilian, the government of the Kingdom of the Two Sicily from actually destroying the two ships that brought the 1,000 volunteers of Garibaldi to Sicily.
Yeah, my great grandfather, he was from Avellino, and he fought against Garibaldi, and he blamed the British. Because
I'm sorry,
my great grandfather, he was from Avellino, and
Avellino, sure.
Yeah, he fought against Garibaldi's army, believe it or not. And then he had to come to the United States because they kicked him out of Italy. But he had a problem with the British too. He cursed the British, but because
the British were responsible basically for safeguarding, for protecting the interests of Garibaldi, for providing arms and weapons and all kinds of things. So basically, this new book tells the story from the point of view of actually what actually happened in Sicily at that time.
Well, that sounds fascinating. I look forward to reading it. Definitely, it'll be another addition to this history of ours that we're trying to get to know better. So that's great.
Right,
I appreciate that. Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for being with me today, and I look forward to talking with you again in the future. And all the best to you in the new year. And please apprise us always of what you're doing and what's going on there. And I'll have links to your organization.
Great talking to you.
Great.
Send me a link where I can actually see this. You'll put this online.
Yes, absolutely. I put it online. I'll send you the link to the YouTube channel that we have, and I'll give it all to you. Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Professor. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Ciao.